Hello and welcome to Argus Spotlight, working your way up the corporate ladder with Irina Vinogradova, Senior Manager within the London Consulting Team, covering crude and refined products at Argus Media, and me, Isabel Duffy, Consulting Analyst and co-host of the Argus Women's Initiative Network podcast. So welcome, Irina, and thank you so much for joining us on the Argus Women's Initiative Network podcast.
Thank you, Isabel. My pleasure.
So Irina and I were on the same team, which is the London Consulting Team, specifically in the projects division. And then within that, I cover biofuels, and then Irina covers crude and refined products. And so today, I'm particularly looking forward to our conversation for International Women's Day about Irina's career and experiences as a real leader in commodities. So first off, I think, Irina, I wanted you to provide some background. So could you just share a little bit about how long you've been at Argus Media and what type of work you do on a daily basis?
Sure. I joined Argus Consulting in November 2015. So it's going to be 10 years this year. It's been a while. Started as an analyst and then grew through the ranks.
Mm-hmm.
It was an interesting development, I think, throughout my time, because when I started, the team was fairly small. It was about 15 people, and we did not have division between projects and fundamentals and subscriptions. Everything was done by the same team.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually it just kind of branched out. And then when you start as an analyst, you cover everything. So I covered almost everything. I think in my time I did not cover biofuels, and I had only a little touch of metals, working in metals. I think with pretty much everything else, I've done it all.
And why did you decide to specialize into crude and refined products then? Was it just kind of based off past experience or because you just like the subject?
It's a bit of everything. So I started as a conference producer in oil and gas, but my main interest was gas. My projects, as in my conferences, were more around gas and LNG.
Yeah.
And then based on that, I decided to have my second master's degree at CAS, Energy Trade and Finance. And I wanted to do consulting afterwards, unlike most of my peers the degree. So when I finished, I really wanted to do commodity analysis, market analysis. I was quite looking forward to do like feasibility type things or M&A type things. It was a bit hard to find what company would do this, and it was just purely by chance that my acquaintance from Turkey was in the city, and we had a dinner, and he was invited the following day. He was invited by Argus employees to a dinner as well, and I kind of tagged along. And then I asked the guys that were from editorial. So I asked them how everything went and, what is their job, and then basically they encouraged me to apply. And when I checked the openings, there was this graduate consulting analyst opening. So I decided I had no idea that Argus is more than PRA. I had no idea that Argus did consulting. So I just applied. I had around multiple rounds of interviews and got through. So this is what I wanted to do, and I had a good background for it because at CAS we studied everything from oil and gas to, I don't know, cocoa beans. So I was quite well prepared. But I was well versed in terms of industries and, what different things meant and sort of supply demand and market stuff and freight calculations and all of that. That was fairly easy. But I think my Excel was very rusty. And I think as a non-native, I was struggling a little bit with how I kind of write. Well, back then these were reports, not just slides. So how do I write lengthy reports fast enough and to a good standard?
Yeah, so did
Um,
you feel that you came into the role just very confidently and you were very prepared? I understand that you had a lot of knowledge kind of in the subject, but then you were also saying, in terms of like even English being your second language, like was that then tough?
I think it was a bit hard. It just maybe
Yeah.
unlike for others, my hardships were more from excellent language compared to understanding of the markets. So the market bit was a bit easier, and also I knew some people, so I could ask within Argus as well as outside Argus for some advice, and I don't know,
Yeah.
even some sort of data sources, something that we couldn't find within Argus. But
Yeah.
the analyst job is data crunching a lot of the times. So a lot
Mm-hmm.
of Excel, a lot of putting some reports together. So that was typically taking me a bit longer. And also, yeah, I think there was a little bit of that confidence
Mm-hmm.
thing that I was always asking my British colleagues to check work after me so that there would be some sort of spelling and a bit more wordsmithing to do. I felt for me compared to others. I asked management to get me on a course where it was something like better use of English
Of
language and business
language.
structure or something. So got on a course. I was the only non-native, which surprised me. And
Amazing.
it was quite funny to realize that lots of
Yeah,
people are struggling with same things that I am. So I think
that's
after
so
that it got a
interesting.
bit easier.
Wow, that's so interesting. That's really good though that you were kind of just proactive and you just thought, okay, what can I actually do to, move up in my career? Um, and so do you think, I mean, everyone kind of knows that, the oil and gas industry is very male dominated. And so if you reflect on being a senior leader in such a sector, do you have any kind of advice for aspiring female leaders about how to make an impact and move up in their career? And what do you think's helped you to reach the position that you're at today?
I wouldn't necessarily differentiate the genders here.
Hmm.
I think it's similar um to actually any industry as well, and it's similar between males and females. I mean, you need to
Yeah,
work hard, but also you need to talk about your work, and this
yeah.
is probably when some of the females feel a bit more shy. But to me, it's my personality trait rather than a gender trait.
Hmm.
So you need not only to work to a standard and exceed it, but also make your work known to others. So take opportunities to, I don't know, present for your colleagues, take initiative and speak at meetings, um, ask for more opportunities to speak at client meetings, ask for opportunities to speak in internal meetings, be it within your uh, little analyst group like 101s, or be
Yeah.
it for, say, consulting meeting once a month. These are all platforms where you can shine and you can use it wisely to sort of show your face to management a bit more and be a bit more known. It's always easier to make a case if you're more um, up on the stage.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think men and women shouldn't be treated differently in the workplace, of course. But I think what you touched on, which is that maybe women are sometimes less likely to promote themselves compared to their male colleagues. I think that's definitely something we see within the workplace.
Exactly, and just don't be afraid to ask because opportunities come to those who ask for them.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And so looking at your experience overall as a consultant, how have you found, consulting specifically? And do you enjoy the client-facing element of being on the projects team?
It's slightly different. You need to be viewed as already knowledgeable enough to give advice. So maybe sometimes for analysts, it's a little bit harder to present confidently enough,
Yeah,
or have this internal confidence that you know just about enough to talk about it.
yeah,
So I think
exactly.
that gets easier as you progress through the ranks, and also it gets easier if you are predominantly covering one commodity. But it kind of helps sometimes to switch between the commodities to learn how it works and what the synergies are. So
Mm.
for me, earlier in the career, because work just came through the door, and you would work on fertilizers today, and then you would work on crude products tomorrow, and pet camps the day after tomorrow. You kind of had to know it all, but
Yeah.
it was easier to spot the synergies. So then, eventually you kind of become a bit better versed in a holistic approach to how everything works together, and maybe spot where one model doesn't take into account something that the other team has done, or anything that might affect the commodity you're working on compared to the other commodity you already covered.
Mm.
So I think in that regard, it's a little easier in some way to stay on one commodity, but on the other hand, you sort of lose that holistic approach a little bit.
Is consulting something you've always wanted to do?
In terms of what I wanted to do, I wanted to do projects. I like fast-paced. I like things that change. And now that I'm covering only one set of commodities, it doesn't change as much compared to earlier in my career. It just so happened that I covered crude and refined products more than anything else, because the peak of my analyst and manager career was during the blossoming of this copy-paste refinery studies. Everybody and their dog wanted to build refinery back then. And I think after the fifth project in a row, that was a standard refinery study where you're covering anything. It was refinery and pet camps back then, refinery and pet camps
Yeah.
complexes. So you would cover everything from different types of crude that the refinery can take and we recommend taking, to how to sell all of the products from the refinery. So you end up with like 20 plus products that include refined products and pet chems. So I think after that, I was like, it gets a bit repetitive. I'm not
Yeah.
sure where do we go from here. But then it somehow it helped me to specialize, and this is how I kind of started getting my sector specialization.
Interesting. And do you find that now so many companies are decarbonizing, there's less of an appetite for consultants, or is it just that the maybe desired scope on the client side has just changed?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's just a mature industry. So for mature industry, um, it's less common to involve consultants. It's typical for nascent industry like hydrogen and biofuels to have a lot of consulting studies, because they are fairly complex subjects,
Mm.
and they require quite specialized expertise, and companies don't have that in-house necessarily, and they just want to see if it's something worth diversifying into. So that brings a lot of consulting revenue.
Yeah.
Whereas with mature markets, something happens every now and again, but it's going to be much more rare and much less standard.
Mm. Okay. And so I just have one final question. And I know we touched on how important it is to promote yourself in your career, but do you have any other advice for anyone in the early stages of their career on how to really succeed and climb the corporate ladder?
Well, generally, I think you should, when you feel internally relatively ready, and you roughly know how long each grade takes, you need to start conversation with your manager about how do you move forward.
Mhm.
I mean, ideally, you should be in conversation with your manager all throughout, and just saying, this is what I'm doing. Is this good enough? What else can I be doing? How can I show that I'm ready for the next step? What should be the things that I should focus on to build
Mhm.
my case? Um, Basically, ask for opportunities, ask for steps, ask for advice. Um, don't be afraid if you're going to be told, we can't do this now, but we can do this later. I think it's better to start these conversations earlier and
Hmm.
start building the case earlier to avoid disappointment, and just see for these uh, extra ways you can bring value, which could be um, perhaps not apparent. So
Hmm.
in consulting, sometimes the way you bring value, except projects, can be these PD activities. I think that is regarded quite highly by the management. And the other thing I think is to have a good network within the company.
Hmm.
I always highly advocate for um, consulting guys to be out and about and talking to other departments.
No, you're right. I think it's so important to make sure you're talking to other colleagues, even outside of your team, and just making sure that your knowledge isn't just solely on your specific commodity, but also expands to other areas as well. Well, Irina, I'd love to continue chatting, but I think we will have to finish up there. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining me today. It was a really interesting conversation, and there were some really great takeaways for our listeners regarding career advice. So thank you for that. I also want to wish everyone a happy International Women's Day, and thank you again, Irina, for joining me.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.